The question that we're asking today is, will this week be remembered as the week South Africa scored an economic own goal, and what has that done to the currency and to investor confidence? From Mcebisi Jonas's bombshell about the hand of the Gupta family in state affairs and the denial of the allegations by the Gupta family, all this, Moody's is in town to make us make sense of all of this that's happening in the political space. I'm joined by Mathekga, political analyst at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection, and Brigid, CEO of Kaon Capital. I don't even know where to start. So let's start off with the latest. Give us an update, Ralph, on the Mantashe versus Gupta development, and then we'll weave that into the broader story.
Well, even before the ANC could discuss this issue at the NEC, they said they were going to discuss it, but they were saying that it's not a big issue. And now that the Secretary General of the ANC came forth and said that the Guptas are actually using their television and their media to attack the ANC, because the way in which the Guptas reframe this issue, they are saying that the Deputy Finance Minister, Mcebisi Jonas, is part of a faction that involves also Mantashe within the ANC to try to get rid of President Jacob Zuma. So I think that now the gloves are off. It looks as if it's going to be the ANC versus the Guptas. But what worries me about that is that Zuma appears to be a victim.
So that's an interesting one. I mean, Brigid, the president as the victim in what we're seeing, which is also in line with how we saw him responding in Parliament, especially to Maimani's question yesterday, saying that if the Deputy Finance Minister received a job, he received it from the Gupta. So why are you putting this question to me? The international community, the investor community, watching this fracas, I mean, what on earth could they possibly be thinking?
Well, look, I'm not a political analyst, so, hopefully Ralph can highlight a little bit more. But from my understanding, the thing that confuses me here is you have a president who serves at the pleasure of the people. Yes, he serves the ANC, but he serves at the pleasure of the people who voted him. When certain decisions are made by the president, like what we saw in December around Nenegate, the consequence of that was by replacing him with somebody called David van Rooyen, who we still don't really know a lot about. What we do know is that he was nobody and was to take over a role that is significantly important in the running of this country, particularly based on the economic struggles that we currently face. Now, my concern there is you made that decision. You are the president. You came out and you made that call. The market reacted extremely adversely to it, for which we all still feeling the backdrop of that decision. Not to the extent that we did, however, we're still feeling it. The decision was reversed, and we were then placed with a new finance minister who everybody knows and has come on board and has had a good reputation as to what he did in SARS. Maybe not such a good finance minister at the time, but maybe this is his time to resurrect and to prove that he is the man that we all believe that he is. The concern for me, however, is that he who is given a lot is expected a lot from.
Right.
And he is the president. When you hear things like the Guptas have offered certain people positions in Parliament, in which realm of understanding is it okay for a private family to have that type of power? And this hasn't come from one person, this has come from numerous people. So the question still remains, not only in the minds of a lot of South Africans, but international investors, who is directing the ship? You cannot take the position of victim. You have to make a stand, and somebody needs to be held accountable, because decisions that are made by the president, he makes them, but there is people behind that. And how many of those people were not employed by the Guptas? I hate to say it on public TV, but that is a question that people are asking.
So the CEO of SA Inc. under pressure, I think let's quickly get that voice that was the bombshell that dropped in South Africa this week. Deputy Finance Minister Mcebisi Jonas saying that he was offered the position of Finance Minister by the Gupta family. Here's that particular piece.
Therefore, let me state the facts on the matter of whether I was approached by non-governmental individuals in respect of the position of Minister of Finance. Members of the Gupta family offered me the position of Minister of Finance to replace the then Minister Nene. I rejected this out of hand. The basis of my rejection of their offer is that it makes a mockery of our hard-earned democracy, the trust of our people, and no one apart from the President of the Republic appoints ministers. Let me also place on record that there was no discussion between the Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress, Mcebisi Jonas, and myself on this matter.
Ralph, back to the point that you made where you're saying we're seeing the positioning of President Zuma as a victim in this particular saga. We know that the NEC meeting is about to kick off. What do you think is likely to be the outcome here? Because there have been voices murmuring about the potential conversation around recalling the president. How are you reading that? Is that far-fetched? Is that something that there's a strong enough push within the ANC to want to make it a reality?
You know, recalling the president, I won't say it's impossible. Anything is possible in politics. But I think at this point it's just wishful thinking. The reason why I'm saying this is because President Jacob Zuma is still the president of the ANC. And look carefully as to how the ANC managed this. The ANC has been pushing the idea of a state capture. For me, it's nonsense. There is no state that is being captured here, and everybody has been going along with this. The state involves the judiciary, it involves CNBC, it involves civil society, it involves us and many people. They are not being captured. Here we are talking about the ANC capture. Because if the ANC is pushing this thing of the state capture, then what they can do is to blame corporate interests. The reality is that it is the ANC that is in trouble. It is the ANC that have allowed the Guptas to set some form of an ad hoc deployment committee running parallel to that of the ANC. What I find also even surprising that the ANC doesn't want to take responsibility on this is that for some reason they seems to be assuming that they've been in charge of appointing these people for a while. I mean, this is not the only appointment that we're talking about. There are appointments that go far back. My concern is, does the ANC sincerely believe they've been making those appointments? They've been made, those appointments have been making by their president who they deployed. And that is why I think there is a spin at play. What's going to happen, or what's most likely to happen, is that they're going to come out of this NEC protecting President Jacob Zuma, but in a way that it poses him as a victim. And I think that we might be going into an era where the ANC will emphasize the whole idea of a corporate capture, to say that there is a problem of bigger corporate interest in South Africa capturing politicians. If you do it that way, which I think that is what they're trying to do, you therefore exonerate the ANC. It doesn't have to take personal or maybe liability as to how the Gupta directly, no action whatsoever. The whole thing is going to be written off as a philosophical discussion about the corporate interest in South Africa, and everybody goes home. Business resumes.
There are voices, Brigid, that are saying, come on, this is a lot of noise. We're in an election cycle. This is expected. There might be a lot of politicking right now, and we're making a big hoo-ha over something that is not actually that big. I mean, how do you respond to that?
Well, look, I mean, the thing is that we all sitting here have been hearing rumors of this. We've been hearing the name, the Guptas for how long? The problem is now that you've had people, significant people, come forward and confirm what we've all been hearing. That's number one. The second thing, there was an interesting debate on 702 the other day, and one of the ladies that phoned in was an anonymous woman that was from the MP, and she said when she was approached that President Zuma was in the next room. The third thing is that when we heard the statement earlier by the Deputy Finance Minister, he stated categorically that the only person that employs people in Parliament is the President. Now, if people are being appointed that the President does not know about, who's appointing these people?
So it continues from the question that the leader of the opposition, Mmusi Maimane, posed to President Jacob Zuma. And of course, and in that response, he again goes back to the role of trying to ensure that the buck is not stopping with him. Here's the president's response.
Honorable Speaker, I appointed Jonas as a deputy minister. That's what I offered Jonas. I never offered Jonas ministry. That's why he's a deputy minister. If Jonas says he was offered by the Guptas, I think you'll be well placed to ask the Guptas or Jonas. Don't ask me. Where do I come in? I had no business with that. I had absolutely no business. Ask the people who are said by Jonas offered him. Those are the people who must ask my good honorable member. Don't ask me.
So I think if you were to put a headline on this, Ralph, you'd say CEO cop-out.
Exactly. I mean, if the president doesn't know that this kind of overtures are made to his deputy ministers who are members of his cabinet, what else does he know? I mean, for that matter, this for me is a serious issue. But I also want to go back to the ANC, the manner in which they've managed this. And we need to be very clear. The reason why some ANC members are coming out is not just because of maybe the question of their conscience and all that. It has a lot to do also with the public pressure. Look at how Jonas came out against this. The DA says we are going to ask this question in Parliament. Pressure builds outside the ANC. Jonas comes out. Fake Mentor comes out. The ANC has been sitting on this information as a party. I think that they must take responsibility. Instead of elevating this thing to be an abstract idea, it is what has affected them, and they need to ask themselves, how far does this go back? Why have we been quiet? Why should people trust us going forward that we will be able to act upon things like that? This information start coming out when the wheels are falling off, when Treasury is having the problem that it's having. When we are talking about the downgrading and all that, you need politicians who can act quicker without always thinking about the cost-benefit analysis.
I want to get to Moody's being here with you, Brigid, in a second. But before we do that, the 27 questions, because now this is going to become another theme with the finance minister. Do you buy the fact that up until now, the only reason the finance minister has not answered those 27 questions is because he just hasn't had the time to do so?
I think that the finance minister is also calculating. He's looking at the public mood. Again, these things is not being looked at fairly. I personally think that they should be answered about the rogue unit within SARS. But the problem is the timing at which this is being asked and the manner in which it is being used for political point scoring. And I think the finance minister is very careful here. He's looking at the public mood and he realized that, you know what, the public is supporting me. I can just ignore the discredited hawks ahead, who actually there are those who are trying to remove him. So the political mood is such that the finance minister might not have to worry. It's not about time. He could answer those questions within 30 minutes if he knows where he was at that time. But it's no longer about that. It's about the implications of the finance, and the finance minister has got this public support outside. Again, as South Africans, we are duped into the whole thing. Probably will never get the answers about the rogue unit.
Brigid, it seems like there's a lot of smokes and mirrors, and one would think that this might be an absolute nightmare for the ratings agencies. No doubt they're tracking a number of variables before they get to their decision. But how important is what is happening on the political front going to be for the decision that we're going to expect out of Moody's in the next week or so, but also what's likely to come from Fitch and S&P a couple of months down the line?
I think that I was listening to the conversation earlier as well, and I think that we must be very cautious not to underplay how important our rating actually is from a global perspective, from funding our account deficits, etc. But with regards to the Moody's decision, this noise is something that is a concern. However, the pointed concern here is the role and the administration of the finance ministry and the budget that was put forward. Because we are in a precipice of opportunity where the market, and you saw the reaction before the budget, market was extremely nervous ahead of the budget. Please give us a good budget. Please cut back. And some people criticized the fact that there wasn't enough pressure with regards to additional taxes, etc. But on the flip side of that, looking at making people accountable, talking about things like procurement, being more accountable with regards to government spending, etc. Speaking a good message. Now, my big concern is, if you see what happened when we had Nenegate, the concern still is, why was that decision made, and why was it made like it was, for a position that is so vital with regards to taking this country and this economy to the next level? Yes, it's not going to be about Mr. Pravin Gordhan alone. However, he sets the strategy, and then the provinces and the municipalities need to deliver. But we do need to know from an economy that we have stability within that role, and we have somebody that is accountable and somebody that is recognized to position South Africa so that the provincial and municipalities can deliver upon that, and we can grow and we can sustain and go forward. So I don't think it's so much about all the political issues with regards to the fact that we've got an election coming up, blah-de-blah. I think it's very pointed around that treasury function. Who is fighting for that? Why is there a power play around that? What is the motive for that? And the fallout from that will be very, very detrimental to all of us for a long period of time. So think carefully about how we deal with this. And I agree. I mean, Mr. Pravin Gordhan right now is doing the right thing by not getting himself involved in issues that are not forward and center. The issues now are making sure that we don't lose our rating, are making sure that we deliver on our budgets. The rest they can deal with.
The rest that they can deal with. The focus now is ensuring that we don't get a ratings downgrade and to make our way through the political noise that's captured the minds of South Africans. A very big thank you to Brigid Taylor, CEO of Kaon Capital, and Ralph Mathekga, political analyst at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection.